Hi there. My name's Nick Mehta, and I'm the CEO of Gainsight. And I'm so excited to host you and many other folks in this virtual fireside chat with Maria Martinez. Maria doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to do one anyway just to flatter her a little bit. Maria has probably one of the most longest and distinguished careers in the world of customer support, customer services, and customer success. Maria started her career at Microsoft, where she ran a big chunk of all services at Microsoft. Then she was at Salesforce through a lot of the kind of high growth years where she was president of the customer success group at Salesforce and really helped scale the world's largest customer success organization. And then she joined Cisco as part of this huge transformation Cisco is going through to become a full-fledged subscription business. And she became the EVP and Chief Customer Experience Officer at Cisco. Beyond all that, Maria's been an amazing contributor to the community of customer success. She helped us way back when in the early days of the industry. She's spoken at the Pulse conference before. I know she's an inspiration to many of you as leaders, and she's an inspiration to me. Welcome, Maria Martinez.
Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you for the kind words. It's great to be here again with you, talking about this very important topic.
Well, we do. We definitely both have said customer success, the phrase probably more than any two people in the planet. And we've got actually, just as a kind of thank you to Maria, Maria wrote the foreword to the original book on customer success that probably many of you have read. And she's actually kindly written the foreword to a new book that's coming out in May called Customer Success Economy, about how customer success is taking over industries and going across functions across companies. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. But before we do that, just to start with some fun, if customer success was a song, if you had to pick one song to represent it, what song would it be, Maria?
Well, that's a hard one because, I like music and I actually have a whole playlist, about customer success. So I have that in here. But I guess if I had to pick one song, I'd probably pick Believer, Imagine Dragons, right?
Oh, that's good.
That's the one I would probably pick, yeah.
Awesome. And I would pick, I've certainly done some fun music videos about customer success in the past. I'd say it's either a Taylor Swift song about relationship challenges, which is there's many of those, or it's a country music song. Country music, you lose your dog, your pickup truck breaks, you go to jail and you get drunk, and that's a lot like managing customers. So, but I'm really excited to dive into the forefront of customer experience and customer success with somebody who's kind of practicing it at huge scale at Cisco. And so, Maria, I want to kick it off with a question that kind of actually came up in my mind when you took the job at Cisco. Obviously, you've done amazing things at Salesforce, transitioned to Cisco, and I was curious to see your title change. So at Salesforce, you're president of the customer success group. At Cisco, you embraced the title of customer experience officer. Talk a little bit about the choice of that phrase.
Well, when I came to Cisco, Chuck, our CEO, and I talked a lot about the mission that he wanted for the company, and it was about transformation for sure, which is this is a key part of that, right? The transformation to a new business model, a new customer engagement model, and we realized, of course, that it was much more than the traditional customer success, right? That we need to look at the end-to-end experience from the customer. That starts from the very beginning, from the moment that we market to customers, when we sell them, and then when we onboard them and so on. So we still have retained the name customer success for the function, but we're thinking about the experience overall.
That's wonderful, because I think a lot of people struggle with what's the name of the umbrella. Some people, the function is customer success and the umbrella is also customer success, which can sometimes be confusing. You're saying the umbrella across the whole life cycle is customer experience, and customer success teams are a part of that journey overall.
Yeah.
That's great. And one of the things I think, you've answered many times over the years, but just for the audience, some people get confused between customer success and the phrase that sounds almost the same, customer support. And so since you've explained this a million times, I'll ask you millionth and one time, give you the definition of how you think of those two as different.
Well, I think about customer success really is it's mainly the post-sales experience for which support is a piece of it, right? Mm-hmm. And I would think about it more as a continuum where you need to really bring the customer along at every step of their life cycle, right? All the way from onboarding them. A lot of people talk about adoption, but I've actually really put a lot more energy now on things like onboarding, for example, which I know you do too, right? And just thinking about, I think probably if I was going to differentiate the most is a subset, right? But more important than anything is about being proactive versus reactive. I think that's probably the one key element that differentiates both.
So what I'm hearing a little bit then is it's almost like nested Russian doll. So the biggest doll is customer experience. That's the whole thing. Customer success is that post-sale experience and onboarding, adoption, et cetera. Support's part of that. Customer support's one piece of that. Customer success is more proactive. Support traditionally is a little bit more reactive. Am I capturing correctly?
Yes. Do you see, Nick, customer success as a simplification agent for organizations?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think in a lot of companies, customer success is created because there's this big gap, just like you did Salesforce a long time ago, you and your colleagues, right? Where you have this gap after the sale, before the renewal, who's proactively driving that customer to value. And there was a different kind of gap too, which is the customer on the outside was confused by the vendor's organization. I know a lot of customers where they feel like to work with a vendor, they need to know the org chart of the vendor. They need to know how different people are paid so they know who the right person is to go to for what, and what the business unit structure is, and what product groups are there, and what their incentives are. And that's not really what any of us want our customers to be focused on, is learning our org chart. And so I think in the early days of a lot of companies, customer success becomes this navigator, right, that's helping you understand where to go to, et cetera. What we found is if you get stuck there, the problem is you're not adding enough value for the customer. If you're just like a phone tree or an email router, eventually you've got to be able to add value as a customer success person on your own around outcomes and value and ROI. But as a starting point, helping to simplify the organization of the vendors is a good way to start.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great point. As a matter of fact, that's one of the first things that we did at Cisco, to try to really integrate, a lot more the experience, because it's about experience, for our customers. Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, what we found in general is like companies that are getting started in a multi-product portfolio, they're actually really, they have to kind of have that customer success person be that point of contact to help figure out how to navigate. So as an example, a company you and I both know well, I think Splunk has done a really good job of sort of managing this kind of post-customer purchase. How do I get the customer to value, and how do I actually help that customer navigate support versus renewals versus services versus TAM? These things are obvious to us, but to the customer, they're not. I think at Salesforce, you put a lot of work in. I noticed around the work you did to help customers be put through a journey end to end, and kind of helping them, particularly in the low touch space, helping automate some of that in one-to-many fashions, and lots of other examples out there. So one of the things I was going to ask you is, you have run 3 huge organizations, 3 of the biggest in the world. So that means you've dealt with org charts and reorgs more times than you can possibly, I'm sure I could possibly imagine. How do you think about the org chart for customer success and where it should fit in, and how you thought about that at Cisco specifically?
It's very important that customer success, becomes a function that it really reports at pretty high levels in the organization. Many times it gets buried so deep, and honestly becomes tactical. Many times a lot of companies just say it's adoption. We're here. Yeah. So I mean, I'm a big believer that if you believe that the customers that focus on their customer experience, right, and making that the best that they can be, this becomes a pretty important function that needs to report pretty high up, in the organization, right? It's great that at Cisco chose to put it directly reporting to him. That doesn't necessarily always have to be the case, but you have to make sure that it becomes a peer function to other functions that are very important, like sales, right? Key, to the organization to value that. I'm wondering, Nick, what do you think about, that? Where are we at, today in achieving that status, for customer success in companies?
Well, I think you said it well, that it's not just about the org chart. It's about how the philosophy of how they think about it. And actually, I remember speaking to a chief revenue officer about a year ago, and he said he had customer success put underneath him, but it wasn't the focus of the company. So he spent maybe 1 hour a week on that and 55 hours a week on sales, right? And so I think that's the mistake. If you have customer success reporting to somebody who's not able to put the time into it, that doesn't have the passion and the strategic thinking around it, I think it's going to be a failure. I know some chief revenue officers who really value customer success, and they think it's an equal part of their strategy to new business, and I think that's great. I think in some cases, because the organization's history is so different, they need that CS leader, that chief customer officer, to report to the CEO to help drive that change. So one of the things I think is it's a point in time situation. If you need to turn the ship a lot, the CEO should be hearing that feedback every day. I'm sure you talk to Chuck about the customer experience every single day, and that means he's able to really steer the ship better with your partnership. But if you're in a world where you've already got it going, I could see it reporting one level lower under a president or something else, as long as that person takes it really seriously.
Yeah, and I think it's important that that person has the right title too. Because, for example, if you're a chief customer officer, you don't have to be, right? If you are own the whole customer go-to-market, right? But many times when that person carries the title sales, right, or sales and marketing, if you put that function underneath, you're not really valuing the function.
I fully agree. Yeah, it's like the title says what it's about, the mission, right? And so you need that title to be something different. And I've even seen some chief revenue officers kind of rethink their mission to actually be about customers. And so they're actually taking on that chief customer officer title and having sales and CS underneath that. So a lot of creativity is happening. But overall, I think people are just realizing I better pay attention to this area. But one of the things I think that's really interesting is it's not just about the organization. It's actually about, as you said up front, the experience. It's about how you're making people feel. And I know you study experience a ton, not just B2B experience, but also consumer experience. When you think about building a concierge-like experience at Cisco, what do you think the keys are to making your customers feel like they're at the Four Seasons or at some kind of high-end service?
I think it's very important that every company puts the deep thinking into what do they want their experience to be, right? They may have an experience today, but when they are transforming, it's like, what do we want to be, right? That leverages your strengths, but also has the aspiration about what you want to be. So, for example, we have chosen, for us to be simple, agile, and innovative, right? So we put a lot of thought, and we said that is what we want to do. So then what you do is you build that experience, around that. And, as you build concierge functions or, contact centers or anything like that, you got to make sure that you live the values that you have set yourself, for your company.
And I really like how you came up with that mission statement, just 3 words, very simple, because I'm guessing that gives marching orders to all of the people designing your experience, from the customer support leaders to the people designing new service offerings to your customer success management team as well. So that's really great to have that mission statement. If you're watching, I encourage you to say, what's the mission statement for your experience? Do you have something as clear as what Maria just articulated overall? So one of the things we talk about in customer success, the thing that is the most obvious elephant in the room is always churn. And churn is probably a bigger thing now because the economy is going through a lot of challenges. All of us as humans are going through challenges. So a lot of customers are trying to make sure that they're only spending money on what they need. And in enterprise, it's quite challenging to think about churn, because I know it's, churn today might be the result of things that happened a long time ago. I'm sure you saw that at Salesforce as well. So how do you think about churn differently in the world of a big enterprise organization with big contracts and big customers?
Yeah, well, at Cisco, as you know, we have all the way from small customers to very large customers. And it's quite different, actually, when you think about it. In the small customers, you have a lot of point products. You have, you really, churn is about you want to return and adopt more in the classical sense. When you go to enterprise, right, we measure churn by not necessarily we lose the customer, because you hardly ever lose a customer. But it's really more about the overall footprint that you have with the customer and making sure that, we look at it, churn is as loss of revenue, rather than necessarily losing the customer or something like that, right? So just think about what are the right measures that you want to have. You may lose on something, but you may gain on another one, because at the end of the day, what you have to put yourself in the customer's shoes and make sure that you are thinking about them. One of the new things that we're doing in that area, by the way, is a lot of focus on use cases, right? Versus products, because when you have customers, just think about them, for the use cases that companies trying to implement, are we helping them advance that use case to value versus just thinking products?
And that's a hot topic right now in customer success, kind of building out that use case taxonomy and how does that map to different offers. Is your team taking the lead on building that? Are you working with product management or product marketing? How does that come together at Cisco?
So we are, we're working very, very closely with marketing. As a matter of fact, it's very hard work. Let's just say that,
Yeah,
right?
a lot.
Because we're trying to unify use cases between marketing, engineering, and customer experience, right? To be the same, so that you can tie the way that you market to customers to how you sell them and how you deliver. So we are like have come up with two levels of use cases where they are completely related, but one are a little bit higher level, which is the selling value proposition, and the other one is more at the execution level. But for the execution level, which is really how we run the business now, we actually have taken the lead on pulling that together for the company, but for the company, right? So not
Yeah.
going on our own in our own way.
I love that. So that for everyone's following along, this is definitely one of the hottest topics in enterprise is getting your sales and delivery motions to be aligned more on use cases and outcomes versus products and features. And in that world, the question is who builds that mapping? And it sounds like if I replay to you, there's a high level mapping which ties to kind of your sales value propositions. Sounds like that's probably done with marketing and other groups. But then there's taking those down to a level of how you execute, and your team's taking the lead on that and but including everyone in the company. So it's not just a customer experience initiative.
Nick, what other trends like that? What can we learn from you? What other trends are you seeing in the industry?
Yeah, so that we hit on one, which is this idea of going from adoption to outcomes, because adoption is great. Using your product's important. That's not why people buy. They don't buy a product to log into it. They buy it to get value. So that's a big one. And last year, actually, you were kind enough to speak at our Pulse event, and we talked about this trend to operationalizing outcomes. The idea that once you've built that use case mapping, how do you make sure that the use cases that are bought are the use cases that are onboarded, are the use cases that you're managing in customer success, are the use cases that you're delivering more services to, are the use cases you're renewing, expanding, right? And you have that common thread, that kind of success plan, to use kind of a generic word, across that end to end. So that's one really big trend. Another one that we saw coming, and I'll describe one that we didn't see coming, by the way, too. One that I think you saw way back at Salesforce and we've seen for a long time is customer success is really part of a bigger picture, as you said, of customer experience. And if I had to simplify it, I think the core kind of elements is like a triangle. So you've got the customer success kind of post-sale experience as one vertex of the triangle. And then you've got the sales team as one vertex, just like sales and marketing, just like you talked about. And that third vertex, which I think is the last year has been a big trend, is product, right? So product needs to be involved in designing the offers and use cases, as you talked about, so they map to delivery. In telemetry around how you're understanding how the deployment of a product and consumption maps to those use cases. In how you use the product to kind of better enable and onboard customers, so you don't have to do it in a very much a hand-to-hand fashion, but it can be done in the product. So that idea of kind of customer success, sales, and product in a virtuous triangle is a really, really big area right now for the industry. And then the third one that I think is probably, it's something that I think we should have seen coming, but I think it's a really, really important, especially today's world, which is we have to remember that despite that we have all this great technology and we can measure all these things that are happening, we still have human relationships, right? That really, really matter. I know you're really passionate about this. Those relationships are both with your team. So your team isn't just a you can't just be a taskmaster to your team and give them a bunch of tasks. They themselves want to grow. They want to have creativity in what they do. They need flexibility. And to your customers, right? It's not just a relationship around a technology and installing something. They themselves have professional goals. They're trying to move ahead. And those are things salespeople have always known. Sales has always been very good at relationships. And so to me, bringing the human element into customer success, training our teams on relationship management and kind of getting deeper in accounts, just like salespeople do, that's been a third big trend.
Yeah, I mean, that is really top of mind, by the way. All those things that you talked about are really top of mind. So we look forward to continuing to collaborate with your team and any of the ecosystem that you've built, in these areas, because those are all really, really important trends right now.
And speaking of trends, one unfortunate trend we're all dealing with, and as human beings we're going through together, is COVID-19. And it's something that's much, much bigger than technology or customer success. And we all start the conversation by saying we're so thankful to all the people taking care of us in hospitals. We're empathetic for the people affected and sick, the people that lost their jobs. And we feel very privileged to be in situations like we're in now, where we can look at this at a little bit of a higher level. But we also have businesses to run, employees to take care of, customers to serve. And how does COVID-19 change the priorities for the customer experience team at Cisco in this new world?
Well, it's certainly changing, things for all of us right now, and I think I like to. I'm using a lot this phrase right now, which is a phrase that I heard a lot throughout the years, but has never meant so much to me than now, which is don't waste a crisis, right? And what it is, really, we got to be agile, we got to be fast, and we are gonna have to adjust to what our customer needs. For us in Cisco right now has been, of course, about all the needs for web conferencing, so our WebEx product, secure connectivity, even old technologies like VPN that that are in big demand. So the shift of the work that we're doing, so that agility and really listening to our customers more than ever and being there for them, by the way, in a way that it's not at all a commercial relationship, right? So a big shift to that customer success function having a much more important, play than ever before. Like I say, don't waste a crisis. So this crisis allows us to elevate things to a higher value in the customer's eyes. And our job now is to capture that so that then we can make that as an ongoing motion. So
it's so well said.
Great work. Mm-hmm.
I use that same phrase too, because I do think it creates an opportunity for us to move forward. It's a silver lining to an otherwise dark situation is we can move forward. And just as an anecdote, I was on a call with a number of CEOs of public software companies, and a research analyst was kind of hosting the call and talking about what CEOs should think about. And he opened the call by saying, everyone knows that right now for CEOs in software and SaaS, the number one issue is churn and customer success. Now, I didn't say that. I always say that, but he said that. And it's interesting because I do think that this crisis is causing us to remember that the core of our customers in a recurring revenue business, the core of our business, a recurring revenue model is our customers, right? And that should be obvious, but I think it becomes more obvious when other things kind of get slowed down. So I know preaching to the choir for the two of us, but I think a lot of people are feeling that. And
absolutely. It is the time. We talked about earlier, right? Seize the opportunity to make customer success that priority, for all of our companies, right? This is the time to do that.
Totally agree. I tell the customer success leaders out there, probably the folks watching, your job has never been more important. Literally in history, it's never been more important. It's existential to your company. Your work is what's going to keep your company going. Now, switching to gears a little bit, Cisco doesn't exist in a vacuum. You've got your customers, you've got your employees, you've got your community, investors, but you also have this amazing partner network. And everyone asks me, how do you do customer success when you have a big partner channel? And I always say, well, I don't know if anyone's figured out, but Cisco is a few steps ahead of most people. How are you thinking about your partners as part of customer success and customer experience?
Well, when you think about customer experience for us, the partners are a big part of it. Because we have most of our business goes through partners, right? So the partner is the one there with the customer all the time. So the model that we design and implemented and are updating as we learn with them is completely integrated with the partner, right? And it is actually a lot of it's designs for the partners to lead, but for us not to let the partners do it by themselves, right? So we kind of still take ownership for it. And depending on the partner's capabilities or interest, we are there to support the partner. Also, many customers have worked with multiple partners, right? So the unifying force has to be us. So in a lot of our playbooks and our content and our approach, partners are just a real integral part of that experience.
And I'm seeing that you're actually training your partners on customer success and asking them to have technology and data. You're kind of expecting things similar to what you expect of your team. Is that a good way to think about it?
Right. So every content that we are making available to partners, but also we're certifying partners. We've launched our first 2 certifications, one for customer success managers and another one for renewal managers. And we're going to do more. And then, how every company that works with partners tiers their partners, right? And in Cisco words, we call them specializations. The same way that we do technologies, you're a network, have specialization, you have collaboration specialization. Now we created customer success specialization. And for that, as a partner, you're required to have certain number of certifications and certain criteria to make sure that you can tell to our customers that you are certified to deliver customer success.
Wonderful.
Great. Well, Nick, you're coming up with a very exciting book, The Customer Success Economy. So what does that mean to you? And tell us about the book.
Well, it's interesting because you wrote the first foreword to the book that's right here, the original one. And when we did this, actually, it was honestly, customer success, as you remember, 5 years ago, was not a widespread thing. Salesforce was doing it amazingly well. Other SaaS companies were doing it, but it was still pretty small. I think if you talk to your friends, I'm sure most people didn't really even know what it was, right? And I'm sure there's a lot more education to do, but we've come a long way in the last 5 years. As you said in the foreword to the new book, it's not just about churn anymore, right? Companies are going from defense to offense. They're realizing customer success and customer experience are all about changing your growth strategy to be about your customers. And so in this book, we talk about how customer success is a company-wide thing, right? Kind of like you talk about with customer experience. It's not just post-sales. And we talk about what that means for marketing, sales, finance, services, product, kind of how do they all get affected. We also talk about how it's not just a software and SaaS thing. It's hardware companies, it's medical device companies, it's services companies, all kind of rethinking their charter and mission to be about driving customer success and going from reactive to proactive. And so what's really cool is we share dozens and dozens of stories of lots of companies that have gone through this huge transition and really come out the other side and kind of making a big impact, just like Cisco is. And I know you feel like you're probably on the beginning of your journey, and you are, but it's really inspiring for the audience here to hear the story of how far you've come and where you're going. And honestly, the fact that you want to do it again a third time after Microsoft and Salesforce, you must really like this customer success stuff, huh?
I do for sure. But, I do want to help you for all that you do for our community, for all of us that are believers. Really, thank you. Thank you for your thought leadership and for all the activities that you put together, the book and all that. I don't know how the community could do it without you. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much to you, Maria, for being such an inspiration to all of us. And to all of you watching, from Maria and I both, please be well, to best to you, your families, your friends, your companies, and we'll all get through this together.